Okay, so in this question, we have a set that is a function and we have to pick 2 more points, but still keep the set a function. So we look at the x and we just check that the x don't repeat, and those are the points that can be added. Okay, for questions like this, when they ask you for slope, y-intercept, or the equation, I'm gonna say pick 2 points, put them in the table, and then put the table in decimals. Choose linear regression, and you're going to get the equation, right? But with the equation, you know y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, and b is your y-intercept. Okay, this one I'm doing it by hand though. The y-intercept is 4. As a point is 0, 4. Every y-intercept is 0, 0 and a number. So 0, 4. So here's the table that I was talking about. I got this in decimals. In a little bit, you're going to see that I made a mistake. The equation is actually y equals -4. And I didn't notice until I was halfway. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The second way by hand would be using the slope formula. And right now I'm doing the slope formula. I'm labeling my points so that I can put them in my formula. And this is when I noticed that my 4 was going to be negative. And I fixed it. You see that pause that I took? I noticed, oh, it's meant to be negative, right? So you can get your answer either way, decimals or by hand. So let's check again. Slope should be negative because remember, if we put a car on the top of the line, it's going to go down. So that means the slope is negative. And then the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, which is the vertical line, and it crosses at 4. Okay, this is a really interesting question. I'm not going to go over every question. I'm only going to go over the difficult ones. Now, a submarine goes under the water, okay? The question is asking, what was Justin's starting distance and how many miles did the submarine travel per minute? So the starting distance would be your starting value, the y-intercept, and we can see that the y-intercept is 0, -3. The starting distance is below the water, guys, below sea level. So that means that he was initially 3 miles deep. Now, the correct answer here is -3. I don't really like this question because we don't really say -3 miles deep. The word deep is already suggesting, that the number is negative. So we would normally just say 3 miles deep. So I don't really like this part of the question, but we're going to go over more of these type of questions when I come back. Okay, and then they say he will travel how many miles per minute. So it's asking for slope. So again, you can pick those 2 points and put them in a table, put them in decimals, and get your slope intercept form equation. But I'm doing it here by hand. And so I get my slope to be 1/2. So that means that he's traveling 0.5 miles per minute. Right here is asking for the same thing. It's asking for slope and it's asking for y-intercept. You're going to see that I'm going to pick 2 points. I'm going to put them in the table. And then I'm going to put them in decimals. I still show you both ways of doing it though. So I'm going to do it in a table and I'm also going to be doing it by hand. You can choose whatever method you prefer. But remember, my advice is if you're doing it by hand, whenever you finish your quiz or test, if you still have time, go put a table in decimals and make sure that your answers are correct. Okay, so this is a really tricky question. I would say if it's confusing, go to the next one and then come back to this one because the next one is easier. So I have two triangles and they're on the same line. They're also similar in shape. So that means that the slope is going to be the same. So the slope for AC is going to be the same as the slope for DF. I'm going to be using my slope formula. So I'm starting with my AC line. My point, I label my point x1, y1, x2, y2, and put them in the formula. And this is a tricky part. We're going to go see if any of our answers match. Now, if you notice, A and C are definitely not matching at all. C is matching exactly, but I don't want you to say that this is the answer right away. Because if you notice, D could also be the answer. And if you still don't know why, stick around and you're going to see at the end why. Okay, so to be sure, now I'm going to do the slope for DF, for the blue triangle. I'm labeling my points for DF and I'm setting my formula. And I get 0 minus 1.8. And if you notice, the letter C, answer C, does not have 0 minus 1.8, nor does it have 1.8 minus 0. So C cannot be the answer at all. So that means that the answer has to be D. But it doesn't match exactly. And I'm about to show you the reason why. Okay? So we already know the answer is D. Now let's prove it. The reason this happened is because they chose different x1s and x2s. So I'm going to change them. My first point is going to be x2, y2, and my second one, x1, y1. And when I put that in my formula, now you see that it matches the answer D perfectly. And then if I check my blue triangle, I'm also changing x1 to x2 and vice versa. And when I write that in the formula, it also matches answer D perfectly. So my advice would be process of elimination. It wasn't A, it wasn't B. You think it's C, make sure it is. And if it's not, you also check the other one. Okay, so here's number 6. This one's more straightforward. We have that triangle and we have the other triangle, and they share the same line. They're the same in shape, so that means that they have the same slope. So the pink triangle already gives you a point. You just have to, so they give you G. You just have to find point F. And then label and put them in the formula and see which answer matches that. And I'm going to let you do that on your own. Here I did number 7 the decimals way. You pick 2 points, put them in a table, put the table in decimals. Or you can also do it by hand, right? By doing the slope formula and then finding your y-intercept by hand. If you want to do it by hand and you want to check your work or follow along, you can just continue watching the video in silence. So whenever we were reading the question, we see that Damien is currently working on a pool that is currently 50 inches deep. So that number 50 is your initial value. And then he digs 3 times. After digging 3 times, the depth of the pool increased to 86 inches. And after digging 9 more times, the depth of the pool increased 158 inches. So they never gave you slope. They never mentioned the word per, each, every. So that means you have 2 x's and 2 y's. That means you have 2 points. You can make a table. right? But before we even do that, let's talk about the pool, right? If we have our x-axis and y-axis, the pool would be under the x-axis because a pool is underground. So that 50 inches is going to be negative because it's underground. So we can already say answer A is not it, and then also we can cross out answer D. And now let's find the slope. So I have my points and I put them on a table. If you were confused about the 50 being negative, it's okay. You can still get the answer from the table, but you have to know that whenever it says the depth of the pool increased to 86 inches, although it says increased, it's talking about depth, right? Depth is underground. So that's going to be negative 86. If you put your 2 points in decimals, you'll get negative 12x minus 50. Okay, so on this question, I wrote two equations, one for Kisu and the other one for Deja. Now the question is, if both students ate 3 meals on their trips, which student had the least amount of money left over? So meals is X. I know that because 15 per meal. You see that 15X? X represents meal. So since I know meal is X and they're giving me the number 3, they want to know how much money is left after 3 meals. I'm going to replace my X with 3 for both Kisu's equation and Deja's equation. So I'm replacing my X with 3. I'm doing the math. I'm evaluating. And I get Y equals 19. So that means that if Kisu eats 3 meals, she's going to have $19 left. I do the same thing for Deja. And for her, if she eats 3 meals, she's going to have $34 left. Okay, so the question was, which student had the least amount of money left over? Kisu, right? Because Deja still has $34. Kisu only has 19. So you saw me calculating the equation for function B. And then for function A, all you have to do is read and label. The question for B is, which one has the greatest rate of change? So to be able to compare, we're going to ignore the negatives. Okay, just look at your number and think which number is bigger, 0.20 or 0.50. And 0.50 is bigger, so that means that function B has the greatest slope, the greatest rate of change. And then letter C is asking which function has the greatest y-intercept. And for function A, the y-intercept is 7. For function B, the y-intercept is 3. So function A has the biggest or the greatest y-intercept. To explain the reasoning, again, 7 is bigger than 3. And for slope, 0.5 is bigger than 0.2.